Pilot.
Yes. Hello. It is Punt Pals podcast. Robbie Von, Nick Ristovic, back in the saddle for another week as we come off round one, the first round of AFL footy, which was excellent to have back. Nick Ristovic, how are you today, mate?
Great, man. Going well. How are you? How's things up on the red dirt train, you mate?
Oh, very good. I'm still in the Pilbara. I came home after last week's trip, then I went away again on Sunday. Mate, it's going all right. I'm in Karratha. We've done a few fun things. It's bloody hot up here. I'm glad the hotel has a pool. How you been travelling?
Going well, thanks, mate. Doesn't sound like you're taking up the FIFO life anytime soon, but sounds like a bit of a treat up there for you.
Give me the fluoros. As long as I can stay at a hotel and hang around the pool, then I'm down for FIFO. Put it that way.
No, well, my end, mate. Flat out went to the West Coast Eagles game on Sunday, which was a bit lacklustre to say the least, but still enjoyed a big weekend of footy, man. It was awesome.
Beautiful. Were you there in a work capacity, taking the high rollers along?
Mate, I wasn't. I was down there with a few of the boys who also listened to the podcast, invited me along to a little bit of a corporate soiree, mate. So we saw the West Coast Eagles players run out and, you know, got to smell the guana oil there in the change rooms, and that was about the highlight, mate. It was droving after that.
Yeah, it was rough, wasn't it? It was so bad. Hey, we will rip into that with the stories from the round, I suppose, because Freo and West Coast, geez, it was a flop. I would say, though, to you, Freo more disappointing than West Coast.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Bigger expectations on Freo. But yeah, round one arrived and the WAFL team was still on holidays, it seemed, mate. They both absolutely sucked.
Yeah? Yeah, they did. I mean, we did expect it from West Coast. I was always thinking they were going to get a drubbing. But I guess we'll get into the actual the rundown of that game pretty soon. Tigers caused an upset as well. Unbelievable, this.
That was huge, yeah. Beat the Fancy Blues, 41 points. The Tigers are about 11-1, as we spoke about last week in the potty. And the young Tigers, mate, they didn't read the script. They came out just full of run and dare, and mate, they got the upset done against Michael Voss, who's under some pressure already.
Certainly is. I mean, that was unexpected. But I tell you what, Nicko, new kids on the block. That's what you've titled it. And how good were these three debuts,
mate? Some of the best debuts you'll ever see, man. Particularly Murphy Reid. But let's start with Sam Layla, eh? Or Lawler, as he's affectionately known as. Not Layla, mate. Interestingly, Lawler.
Sammy Lawler, love it. I reckon that rings off the tongue a little bit better too. Lawler.
Yeah, it does,
Lawler
mate.
baller.
He's a brawler. Lawler, mate, he was touted to be Dusty Martin V2. He's so hard in the contest, so clean. And when he gets forward, he finds a goal. So, mate, he's a future and hard not to be excited. A Richmond supporter following him.
Tell you what, we have Hockball. Do you reckon when he gets a few years under his belt and he's the star of the competition, we'll have Lawball?
It's got a ring to it already, I think. Better trade like that, mate. We might make some money in the future, eh?
100%. The Blues kick into gear and they run with Lawball. So I like that. Mate, Murphy Reid, unbelievable, as you said. But Levi Ashcroft as well. I mean, that's not a bad debut. Any other week he'd be going, this is a Rising Star nomination.
Yeah, he's a bit stiff, isn't he? I thought, well, starting with Murphy Reid, mate, it's not often you kick 4 goals in 5 minutes in your first game. I think
it's unbelievable.
Ever done that, and that was the only solace for Freo supporters to take out of that game. He was enormous, and then Levi Ashcroft, to your point, mate, Rising Star. Unfortunately, probably won't get the nomination, but yeah, 25 posies in a debut, unbelievable, man.
I know Lawler was good, but surely Murphy Reid gets the nomination for the Rising Star. He kicked 4 goals. Yes, that was epic, but I just think it was the manner he did it. Impact player, comes in that third quarter, quite literally 4 minutes, he kicks 4 goals. Everybody was going ballistic. He sparked the Dockers there for a little bit. It was pretty special.
It was, mate. Particularly the first one where he sells a bit of candy to get around the mark and then slots that one from 40 out, or the one in the goal square where he's sort of playing as a contested forward and gets that crumb out the back and kicks a goal. It was just like, he did everything, man. It was the only thing I was excited about all day, really.
It was all good, wasn't it? Like, I mean, as a Freo supporter, you've got to be pumped like that. You go, Harley who? We've got the Reid now.
Oh, mate, that's it. There's another Reid in town, mate, over here in WA. His name's Murphy.
Speaking about being back in town, though, last week on the pod, you were highly disappointed with Nick the Wizard Watson. He let you down in opening round, but he was back, baby, against the Bombers.
It was massive, man. Kick three, took some huge contested marks. He took a couple of dangles on another shoulders, and he was awesome, man. And did what we expected him to do in week one. He just chose to make us wait a week, didn't he?
That he did. And the Wizard hats weren't out yet. Maybe it could be this week as he gets a bit more confidence. You want to see the Hawthorn supporters there. Just funny wearing the Wizard hats. How good is it?
I know, it won't be long, mate. They'll have him back in the merch range for sure.
And the other great thing about this round is a few stars are back in town.
Yeah, mate. There's a lot of forgotten stars in the AFL, and one of those is Bailey Smith, man, who I spruiked in my top five players, and probably copped a little bit of flack, thinking, how good is he going to be coming off an ACL? But he was that good, man. He was best on ground. 32 positives, a goal, just starred for the Cats, didn't he? Instant impact.
He did. He was everywhere. And, I mean, the Cats just keep doing it, don't they? They lose a couple of players and they just slide a few more in. Selwood a year or two ago, Hawkins this year, and they've managed to actually, replenish their stocks. It's unbelievable. Everyone wants to go to the Cats. They're like the destination club.
Mate, apparently got their eyes on Jamari Ugle-Hagan as well, which is an emerging story in footy this week. So we'll be keeping an eye on that one, mate. If they can do what they've done with Bailey Smith and get him on the straight and narrow, they can be even better.
Let's see the results of that audit. Maybe they can't fit all those stars into the salary cap anymore. Hashtag cotton on. Petrarca is back as well. That was great.
Yeah, he was, mate, and dangerous around goal in particular. Kicked 2 goals, had an epic game, 27 posies, and just thought he was amazing around the ground as well. We also saw Caleb Daniel, man. He returned in North Melbourne colours, had 24 posies in his first game for the Roos. Taranto and Hopper, mate, they've been copying flack. They stepped up for Richmond, 52 posies between them. And then last but not least, mate, Riley Tilthorpe, the bearded man I spoke about for Adelaide.
You love
He
it.
finally delivered, mate. I loved him. He kicked 3, and Adelaide's forwards answered our critics, mate, and kicked 7 between them. So I thought they were really good.
And finally, from the big headlines from the weekend, what are you thinking about Collingwood's forward line now that we saw them actually score a lot against Port Adelaide?
Man, they look dangerous. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. I knew Tim Membry's a quality player. McStay's had his doubters, but when they were up and firing, you saw 2 contested beasts that didn't lose many contests, and then they brought Jamie Elliott and these other guys into the floor at ground level. So Tim Membry kicked 4, McStay kicked 3. They can kick 7 between in most games. I think the Pies are, unfortunately to say it, mate, definitely a legitimate premiership threat.
Time will tell. At 1-1, 1-1. Let's let the jury be out. None of us really want to see the Pies go too well this year, do we? Unless you're a Collingwood fan.
No,
that's
right,
pretty
mate.
much.
No, we'll learn more about him this week, as you said, mate. Only 2 games in. Let's not get too excited, eh?
Would you know many people who would say that Collingwood are their second team? I don't think I know any personally, but do you reckon there's anyone around who does? You love them or hate them?
Love them, exactly, mate. You either love or you hate them, and many people hate them around here, that's for sure.
What do you mean, at your house or your suburb or just in Perth?
The wider WA area, mate.
That's fair. Hey, mate, you might have noticed today I'm rocking the merch, the Punt Pals podcast teach me to the Pilbara. And, I mean, it's half legit on this one because our betting from the weekend, I'm going to say it had mixed results in the end.
The leg I thought they'd be most likely to get us the chockies, and the one that let us down in Tracy kicking 2. He was bowling All-Australian last year. He thought he'd play pretty well down Geelong and just didn't look like it at all, man. Whereas the other 3 legs were done relatively easily. Fogarty kicked 3, Waterman kicked 2, and Allen kicked his goal. So, mate, 1 leg fail sucked, didn't it?
Yeah, it did suck, but at least, mate, the Dublin bet got up just in time for St. Paddy's Day, by the way, which is Monday. I had a couple of pints of Guinness at the local here, Desi O'Dowd's in Karratha. Adelaide and GWS both saluted at 2:41. That was nice going, wasn't it? And we're going well on the Dublin.
GWS had us in some kittens there for a little bit late, mate. They were down by 6, ended up winning by 3, but it was tight. But you take any win you can get, I guess, mate, don't you, these days?
Well, you do. If it's a win on the punt, then you take it. You don't complain. Not one little bit. Just bank that money and put it into another double bet next week. I think that's our attitude now, isn't it?
Mate, 100%, mate. That's how we do it. We're just going to keep folding them into each other. There were probably 4 or 5, mate, massive multi-killers on the weekend. I'll touch on them very quickly. We have a few group bets going on. I have a few in the blokes chat there, and these about 4 or 5 guys that basically killed a lot of multis in the weekend. They need mentioning, mate. They're in the gun. All right.
Lay it on us. Lay it on us.
Harley Reid, man. first and foremost. I know he's copping a lot of flack. I'm not piling in there like everyone else is, but saw him in the flesh on Sunday. The minute West Coast were down by 3 or 4 goals, dropped his head, picking fights everywhere, racked up 3 possessions, I think, in the first half, or 4 possessions in the first half. Finished on 13 positives and missed the 20, which most people had in their multis. So that was a huge multi-killer, mate. Number one.
Yes.
Amos and Tracy, not sure how it's going, mate. This forward experiment with these two, they need to find some chemistry. They led to the same areas. They had Luke Jackson, Tracy, and Amos going for the same mark. So, Tracy not kicking two, cost our multi and many others, mate. No good. Number 3, Joel Amati, man. As you said, he's your whipping boy. Kicked 6 one game, none the next week, right?
Yep, that's what he does. He's inconsistent.
Absolutely shocking, man. Port Adelaide, you called Collingwood a win, but the biggest loss since 2001, Port Adelaide, they lost by 90-odd points to Collingwood. Ollie Wines was the only good player. Anyone in Port Adelaide's forward line, waste of time putting them in your multis. And then Bailey Fritsch, man, last but not least, goalless, averages 1.9 goals a game, hated the wet. Absolute liability when it comes to multis when they're playing in wet weather footy. So he won't be going in the future, man. And they're the 5.
And that's a bit of a problem with first round betting as well, because you always have a read on the players' form from last year as well. So you look at Bailey Fritsch, for example. We know over his career he averages 1.9. He had a reasonable year last year. So you go, all right, he's going to keep on going. So you think he's going to kick goals. You think Tracy and a miss after last year are going to kick goals. So it's hard to really get those guys in your multi and completely rely on them until we're 2-3 weeks down the track. So, I mean, from a punting point of view, it probably gives us a little bit of a sighter. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to know those guys that we want in our multis.
100%, man. I think, you've just got to have a few rounds of footy to go by, don't you? And I think the lesson is don't back Richie in the wet, man. Keep him out.
Love that. I will just back up Harley Reid a little bit. The young fella's still only a second-year player, and we are putting a lot of expectation on that boy's shoulders. I mean, I get it. He was good last year. He shows so much promise. There's all this talk of $2 million contracts per year. All that business. The kid's still got to play some footy, and I feel for him a little bit because all of a sudden, second year... really, he's been expected to be the number one boy in that forward line or the number one man in that forward line. He's still just a young guy, and he was probably expecting to have guys like a Yo in there really dominating. So, I mean, we need to go a little bit easier on him for now, until he lives up to the expectation.
No, you're right, mate. I don't think we should be expecting him to carry that West Coast midfield. He come off a limited pre-season as well, so he does have excuses going into this year. But I just probably didn't like the body language, mate. They were down by, as I said, 3 or 4 goals. He didn't stop running, really. He was 5 yards off the pace the whole game. So whether it's a fitness issue, confidence issue, I think West Coast need to be able to say, hey, you're not quite up to it yet. In terms of fitness levels, you need to go to half back or half forward. You can't allow a player to sit there 5 metres off his man and allow them to stream out of stoppage like they did on the weekend, Gold Coast. They got absolutely monstered in the middle, man. It was quite awful to see.
And I also like it because I would love to see his trade value knock off a draft pick for the Bombers in 2027. 2 first rounders rather than 3.
There we go, mate. I knew there was method to your madness.
Exactly right. Now, mate, let's have a quick review of round 2. Tigers and Carlton. This is unbelievable. I'm still not getting over this.
Yeah, no one can quite believe it, mate. It was the biggest upset to begin the round of all time. But went out to $41 live betting when they were 41 points down, man. And a few punters got on them, a few had that sort of odds, which was crazy to think. But the Blues have got some issues, mate. Take the Tigers' outstanding performance out of it. I thought the Blues backline looked really susceptible. They leaked like a sieve down there, and I think without Wiedering, they would have lost by probably 200. It was unbelievable. Some issues there.
Definitely. A couple of notes from me, mate. One, it was actually a punter's paradise because Sportsbet put out a $10 free bet not long before this game started. And my brother, a couple of the boys at work, and also my wife Alana all took that $10 and put it straight onto the Tigers because the odds were so good.
Oh my God.
That was a bit of a betting paradise. I actually abused my brother. I said, that is the biggest waste of a free bet you will ever make in your life. But he was right. He won the bet, $100 in the account. You can't argue with that, can you?
Yeah, they've definitely got the last laugh, mate. There, I wouldn't have done that personally. I probably would put on a 50-1 SGM or something. But
Yeah.
good luck to them, I guess.
Well, I had the Carlton Blue Baggers, the handbaggers, to win by 60 plus. So when they were
Yeah,
41 up, I was feeling very confident. That didn't work out, though, did it?
I know. Hindsight's always the wonderful thing, man. There's a couple other things from this game, though, dude. Two things, mate. Kernow's desperately needed for them up forward. Kemp needs to go back. They need coverage to help the likes of Wiedering in the back line. And then I saw Cripps in the ruck, man. Your two-time Brownlow medalist getting bashed up in the ruck, then limping off the field after with shin soreness. It just didn't sound like it was the right thing to do.
That's when you know you got problems. Cripps should never ever be in the ruck. He might be tall, but he ain't a ruckman. Like he should be crumbing that ball.
It's not good enough, mate. So they're the two things I didn't like from the game. Hopefully, we'll see the real Blues this week. It's hard to get a read on them otherwise, isn't it?
It certainly is. And you know what? As an Essendon supporter, everything is as it should be at the moment. Hawks beat the Dons though, and this wasn't a bad game. The Hawks were too good in the end, but I just really thought Essendon looked okay. I'm not overly shattered by that result because, I mean, as we sit, Hawthorn are looking like one of the teams to beat in 2025.
Mate, I agree with you. I thought this was a really entertaining game. It was free flowing. There was lots of great goals scored throughout the night. Um, I really thought, yeah, if Essendon can hold up that sort of form against a team who's coming off a game the week before as well, they're probably a bit fitter. I thought it was an enormous effort by the Dons. The Hawks end up having five multiple goal kickers on the night, which was just a little bit hard for Essendon to kind of cover, I guess. Nightmare to defend when you've got that many attacking options. And I really like the game of Jai Caldwell, mate. I thought he was extremely good. 36 positives and 10 clearances. He's really building into a really great player, isn't he?
He certainly is. The Dons got him from the GWS 3 or 4 years ago now. He started off slow, but last year he really stepped up and he's looked to build on that this season as well. So 36 posies is really good. Also thought Dylan Shield was quite good off half back. Do you know what? He got a lot of touches. I don't know exactly how many he got in the end, but he seemed to be in the thick of it. He was quick. He got a lot of run off the half-back flank there as well. So good signs for the Bombers and very happy they kept him because there was talk of trading him to the Saints in the end. So happy with Dylan Shields' game.
And I think apart from those a couple of injury concerns, which we'll take us through in a minute, mate, for the Dons, they're probably just a couple key forwards of being a really legitimate side, I think, aren't they, really?
And that's the problem the Dons have had for 20 years now, since Matthew Lloyd retired, to be absolutely fair. Scotty Lucas might have gone for a year or two longer, and they just haven't had any firepower forward after that. So, yep, you're absolutely correct. That is the big problem. Now, mate, I reckon you might want to gloss over this one a little bit, but we'll move into it. Geelong smoked Freo by 78 points. One thing I will say about this game, though, Nick, is that the score probably makes the game look worse than what it was. Like, there was definitely a blowout in that last quarter.
Yeah, I guess that's what was most disappointing, mate. We started really slowly, the Dockers. We played one good quarter of footy. But we just didn't look anywhere near desperate enough. We got bashed up in contested possession. We actually were okay in clearances, but when it came down to trying to get to the footy first, winning contested possessions when it was in dispute, we really struggled. And I think when it went down forward, mate, those three big forwards, I'll bring it to ground, but they just didn't have any crumbing forwards like the likes of Walters, Bolton, these guys. They really missed that ground level threat down forward, the Dockers. So they'll get better. But yeah, I thought they were really, really, really terrible on the weekend, the Dockers, and they'll be really disappointed with that effort.
We've already touched on the forward line. What do you think needs to happen there between Tracy and Miss and the rest of the forward line there? Do you think there needs to be changes made, or is it a teething problem just going into round one?
I don't think Jackson plays as a traditional forward. My view is that he's a ruckman first, foremost, and a non-baller. He's not really a key forward position player. So when he went forward, what I saw often, as I said before, is the three guys leading to the same spot, almost spoiling each other, and then no crumbing weapons at ground level for the Dockers to obviously put pressure on inside 50. So Geelong were just taking the footy out of there at will, running off half back. And then they got us on the outside and suddenly had uncontested handball chains that led to goals. So we couldn't defend. We couldn't keep the ball inside 50. And when we went forward, those three forwards just didn't have any chemistry and couldn't figure it out between themselves. So They were the major takeouts. I thought Shannon Neal was enormous, man. We talked about how they're going to cover Tom Hawkins. He looks to be taking his football to a whole nother level. He's taking contested
Yeah.
marks. He's beating Alex Pearce one-on-one. Looked awesome to me.
Yeah, 100%. And it's amazing guys like Brian Myers. Like, I always thought he was going to be a bit of a plotter, for example. But, I mean, he must be 7 or 8 years into his career now, and he really feels to be coming on as a league footy player. Like, he is the real deal now. So, Geelong do have a lot of guys like that where they've been at the club for a long time and they've kind of worked their way into being, well, you'd say pretty much men rather than boys.
Yep.
And, I just admire how Geelong are able to bring those players through all the time.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I think your man Myers, he leads the league for goal assists. He can just find these ridiculous kicks from impossible spots where he sets his teammates up. And
Yeah.
you need those role players in your team. And I think talking of role players, what happens with Geelong? They start to lose a few clearance in the middle. They just throw Dangerfield or Tom Stewart in there, these seasoned guys who can get it back in their favour. So Freo needs a couple of guys like that they can rely on. And unfortunately, there's no senior head. So they're going to have to find that through their younger players, I guess.
It's a nice luxury to have, that's for sure. Now, Lions in Sydney, this is probably the closest game and the best game of the round to watch. What were your thoughts on this one, mate?
Man, Lions were just so gutsy. Like if you look at the lead up they had during the week, obviously a false start with the hurricane up there in Queensland. They then lose Sam Day before the game. He's been in their mix all pre-season. Lincoln McCarthy does an ACL during the week back to back, which is a huge downer for the team. Charlie Cameron's pulled out last minute. Sydney played the week before. It all led to a Sydney win, but for somehow, man, the Lions just managed to find a way, didn't they?
Like they always do. I mean, that's what the Lions are all about these days. They're tough, they're hard. As you say, their midfield, absolutely unbelievable. The names that run through there are pretty elite. And then you look at their forward line, you know, they've lost Joe Danaher. There's not as many goals coming out of that forward line. But as you say, they find a way and they get it done. And to beat Sydney in that grand final rematch is a pretty good effort. And it's a big sign of things to come for this year in 2025.
100%, mate. Yeah, hit the nail on the head, and they've still got a lot more quality to come back into that side. And they just find a guy like Levi Ashcroft who bobs up first year, has immediate impact. You know, they don't grow on trees, those sorts of players. So they've got two Ashcrofts running around that midfield, and that might be their future for the next decade, the way it's going.
Oh, I tell you what, how good is that? We talk about Harley Reid going back to Victoria, but what if Brisbane can swoop in and put Harley with the two Ashcrofts? That'd be a fairly elite midfield.
Yeah, mate, it would be a good mix. It would be a great mix. And Zach Bailey, man, watched him as well. A lot of love for him. 4 goals on the night. Doesn't look particularly flashy. He's a high half forward, but geez, if you turn your back on him for a minute, he's so dangerous. And he was in the grand final last year and then proved again on the weekend.
He's one of those guys that'll step up every day of the week. All right, so there's 2 things we need to speak about with the Western Bulldogs Roos game. I reckon we might start off with the podcast last week. What do you reckon?
Always a good place to start. North are an unknown sort of quantity, aren't they, really? They've got a lot of new players in that team, a lot more experience. Those younger players would have taken another step forward. Dogs are weak, vulnerable, a lot of injuries. Mate, I don't know. I think Caleb Daniel's going to be the one to watch. He'll be keen to rack up the posies and prove his old team wrong. So I'm going to have a little flutter on him for maybe 20 posies in my same gamer. And I think North will be competitive, man. I don't think it'll be a drubbing. I reckon they're going to be right in this one, maybe till late.
Mate, very good call from you. It was pretty much to the inch. Like, it was a close game. Caleb Daniel played well. You pretty much called it.
Yeah, I just thought the Roos were going to be much improved, mate, and I was a bit soft on the Western Bulldogs, missing a lot of quality. And in the end, it was a bit of an arm wrestle. The Dogs were in front most of the game, but the Roos closed to within about 8-10 points there at the start of the fourth quarter. And had they have had a little bit of polish at the end there, they probably would have kicked a couple and it would have been within a few points. In the end, 16-point loss to the Roos, but they lost no admirers, man. They look a lot better than last year.
It was an absolutely huge effort. The other thing which was really interesting in this game was the suspension of Jackson Archer. It's Jackson, isn't it? Jackson Archer?
It is, yeah.
I mean, what's your take on this? Because from my view, it was 2 guys going hard for the ball. No one was looking at the man. They were quite literally going for the contest. So this is a 3-week suspension. I think it changes the game in general. Like, how do players approach a contest now?
To your point, mate, it's such a fast split second decision. In the end, I guess is Archer trying to protect himself below the knees? 6 months ago, we're paying free kicks for that, and suddenly he's rubbed out for 3 weeks. So it's caused a lot of controversy, man. And to be completely honest, you don't want to take the appetite for the contest away from the players to the point where they're kind of going in half cocked, trying to win the footy. I reckon that's where more injuries do happen. So. Yeah, I can't understand it. I'm confused by the ruling, and in the end, the guy's probably done the right thing in terms of going to footy. Look, going to be missing for 3 weeks for the Roos.
And what really pisses me off about it, Nick, is that the MRO, the match review officer, and I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially one of the reasons that they found him guilty and didn't overturn the suspension in the end was that they said when they looked back at the stats and, the GPS of the players and all this sort of crap that, what was the name of the guy? Cleary. Was it Cleary, the North Melbourne guy? He had apparently slowed down by 25%, so they said Jackson Archer should have picked up on that and actually moved to evade. But you're talking about a split-second decision here, right? It's easy to go back, look at the GPS, look at all the other things, slow it down, have a look at the incident. But in the moment, the players aren't looking at that. He's looking at the ball. So for that to be the ruling based on that sort of evidence, absolute bullshit. And I tell you what, it's absolutely going to kill our game. Hate it.
Mate, well said. Sam Mitchell, Luke Beveridge have tended to agree with you this week as rival AFL coaches. So that tells me enough as well, mate. No one's happy with it, that's for sure.
Exactly. And when you have the opposition's coach, who had his player injured, actually saying, no, this is bullshit, it needs to be overturned, that's when you know there's something wrong.
100%, man. I'm not happy with it either. It's good fodder for the roast, man, if we ever bring it back.
For now, rant over. Now, mate, this is another one that we called absolutely unbelievable. Pies belted Port Adelaide. Mate, go home. You're drunk, Port.
Mate, you're all over this like a cheap suit. I actually talked up Port and you said, the Pies will thump them, and you're 100% right, mate. So let's go back over last week's tape and have a listen to you predicting the game, mate.
I think Collingwood got pumped last week, realistically. They're going to want to make a statement. No Butters, no Marshall, obviously no big Charlie Dixon as well. Rosie under an injury cloud, no Port Adelaide crowd. Yeah, I just think they're not going to get it done, unfortunately, for the Power. So Collingwood for me. What can I say? I told you so.
You're all right, mate. I just didn't like Collingwood the week before, and I thought, are we going to see legitimate Collingwood? And of course, I went back to the MCG, mate, and did what they do at the MCG, but quite convincingly, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the forward line was interesting. I know you've made note of this, but Membry and McStay, 7 between them. It's a pretty big effort, and it's not the forward line we're used to seeing for Collingwood.
It's a different mix, mate, and you throw in the likes of Jamie Elliott, Bobby Hill. You got to argue that there's probably 5, 6 really quality players sitting in that forward line who can do some damage now, whereas 12 months ago, they were a bit soft in there. Jamie Elliott was injured. Bobby Hill was kind of carrying the forward line. So, mate, different looking forward line. Dan Houston's now down the back line. He chopped up, man. Had 27 positives at 90% efficiency. Jeez, big improvements on last year already.
Gee, I'll tell you what, there's no better way to play your there's no better way to play your first game against your old club than doing it in that fashion. So Dan Houston will be very happy with life at the moment, won't he?
100%, mate. Stuck it right up him, didn't
he? He certainly did. Now, moving through, mate, Adelaide beat the Saints by 63 points. Not sure there's a hell of a lot to sort of comment on this one. Saints pretty putrid at the moment. Adelaide, will they be up there this year? I'm still sceptical. I still stand by my call that we'll judge them by round 7 when they go to WA. What are your thoughts on Adelaide?
I'm more bullish, mate, on Adelaide. Particularly because I think their forward line is starting to take good shape. I mean, Tex Walker didn't really feature at all on the weekend, and they still managed to kick well and truly enough goals. So Isaac Rankin's a genuine star, man. 27 positive, 2 goals, slotted one from outside 50 in the first or second quarter there. Could have kicked easy 4 or 5. They tend to rotate their midfield a lot too, so they've got heaps of different guys going through there that can do the job. Laird's even gone to half back as an All-Australian midfielder, so I actually like him, mate. As you said, we won't know much until at least a few more rounds to go, but man, I'm more bullish on the Adelaide Crows than you are, that's for sure.
From a punting point of view, Isaac Rankin kills me. Every time I get on him for goals, he doesn't kick him. Every time I skip him, he just bangs a few. So, Isaac, me and him have a battle. A battle in our sports bets accounts.
Yeah. If it's not
Now,
Isaac, it's Fogarty.
yeah, it is. It bloody is. Hey, one team that you are so bullish on, and I have to admit that I agree with you here, the Giants. They had a win. We talked about Sydney and Brisbane being the closest match of the round. I was actually wrong there because that was 4 points and this was 3 points. What a game.
It was the game of the round for me. I think the Giants, as I said, I'm very bullish on them, but also the D's, the effort they put in and how close they were to rolling GWS. To me, it was really inspiring. You've got Harvey Langford. You've got a bunch of these younger kids coming through for the D's who look like really quality players. With Petrarca and Oliver back in, man, as I said, I expect them to be a lot better than they were last year, man, and they played really well on the weekend.
That they did. I think the Giants are going to be very good. And as we've talked about, once they get those forwards back in the game as well, you're talking Stringer and you're talking Hogan. There's so much more firepower to come. So I'm very impressed with the Giants. I think they're going to be top 4 for sure. And finally, the horrible drubbing, which was the Gold Coast Suns and the West Coast Eagles at Optus Stadium. Man, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because we talk about this 87 points being horrible. West Coast didn't get beaten by too much more than what Freo did, but I'm a lot more worried about the Eagles.
Yeah, there were no stats where they actually won anything really. West Coast on the field, they lost clearances badly. They couldn't hold the ball in their forward 50. And to be honest, the most damning stat for me was Jack Graham was the highest possession getter West Coast with 23 disposals. He's a first-year player for West Coast. Anderson, Rao, and several others had more than 30 posies for Gold Coast. So couldn't get their hands on the footy. Couldn't stop the forwards for Gold Coast. Ben Long kicked 4. We talked about Ben King already. He could be now winning the Coleman on the back of that if he plays West Coast again. And, mate, it just looked like there weren't many winners across the ground for West Coast at all.
We talked last year about Ben Long a little bit, actually, and he seems to be a little bit of a secret sauce when it comes to anytime goals. Like, he'll usually pop up for one, and he's been very kind to us. So he's one to keep an eye on throughout the season when we go back to punting. But the other question for you as well, and this is around the Coleman medal because you did just bring it up, is playing West Coast twice this year a huge advantage for any full forwards? Is that going to give him the edge when it comes to the Coleman medal? Because it could be worth a few extra goals.
Mate, I think it shaped the Coleman market last year late, didn't it? I think there are a
Well,
couple
we
of
did
top
talk
guys
about it, yeah.
Jeremy Cameron played West Coast late. Everyone's hoping he could kick 5 or 6 to topple Jesse Hogan. So I think them and Richmond, not going by Richmond's performance last weekend, but if you're lining up against those two teams as a full forward, you'd have your licking your lips, I reckon.
Yes, you would be. Yes, you would be. Now, mate, let's quickly go through some tips for this week. I think we'll go through this pretty quickly just to get our thoughts on each game. So starting off with Carlton paying $2.96 and the Hawks $1.40. Who do you like here?
Hawkers, mate. Carlton under pressure, but I think the Hawks will get the job done. But at least a few goals.
Carlton way overs for me at $2.96. Hawthorn easily get this done. Dogs Pies?
Bit tougher this one. Still think Western Bulldogs have got too many cattle out for me. I think the Pies will win, and they won't be making the same mistake back against the Pies again this week. I'm not sure the Dogs can cover their 2 big forwards that are out of the game at the moment.
Yep, I'm with you there for sure. The Dogs at 228, Pies 163. I think Collingwood a really good value there. Essendon, $2.20 for 4, Crows 165. You'd argue that the Dons are coming off a hard game, Crows are coming off a soft game. What's your thoughts on this?
Very tough game for me to tip. I like the game of both these teams last weekend in round 1. If Langford hadn't been injured and Ridley also injured, I'm probably going with the Dons. But just on the basis of those 2 players being out, I'm leaning towards the Crows, who are firm favourites at $1.65. But I think it'll be very close, mate, even within a few goals either way.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I'm just looking at the Essendon line as we speak. It's 7.5. Don't think it's juicy enough at $1.90. So I think I'm going to be safe and take the Crows as well, as much as I hate to say it, Nick.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset in this one, though. I reckon this is the hardest game of the round to pick.
Yeah, I know. And I'm going to regret going against my Dons. But anyway, Port, $1.11 versus the Tigers, $6.70. Thoughts?
Turn
Discuss.
it out, mate. $1.10, Port. No way. Look, I don't think Lightning can strike twice here. I can't see the Tigers winning again, but I don't know, mate. A lot of pressure on Port, especially Ken Hinkley, biggest loss ever last week. You think they'd bounce back, surely?
You would think so. Adelaide, or Port Adelaide at home, they're going to be embarrassed after last week's result. So surely they come out absolutely firing, even if they've got their C team out on the park. But, I mean, the line's 38.5. Could Richmond get in touch with that at all?
Definitely, mate. Yeah, I don't think the Port have a forward line that can kick big scores myself. I'm not convinced.
Yep.
So I think they can get around that, and I think maybe even just extend a little bit, try and find $1.60-ish, maybe at 45 points. Might be a safe bet there, man.
I like that from you. Yeah, I'm taking Port, but I'm also, from a punting point of view, going to take the Tigers line. St Kilda, $4, and the Cats, $1.26.
Cats 39.5. Jeremy Cameron kicks 5. It's just going to be a shellacking, I reckon, this game.
Boom,
Sorry,
agree. Don't apologise to St Kilda. If they could lure a star, they might be all right, but they can't seem to do that. So there's a good reason there's problems at that club. I mean, the line's $1.04 and Eagles $12.50. Do I even need to get a tip off you there?
Well, man, I said would the Eagles finish bottom of the ladder over Richmond last week or the week before and got laughed at by many, but Eagles are $12.50 here, man, and Richmond were $10.50 last week. So I don't know. Eagles have got no chance clearly in this one.
Well, tell me what games they're going to win for the year. That's the thing. I don't know if they can't beat Richmond, which would be 50-50 at this point. It's hard to see them winning too many others. But, you know, they might have a surge. What they did last year was have a bit of a surge mid-year, so you never know. North Melbourne, $3.17 versus Melbourne, $1.36.
Yeah, I don't know. I reckon Melbourne should win fairly easily. But I reckon North are going to be hanging around like a bad smell, man. I reckon they'll be well within it at half time. I just think the D's will have too much class late.
They always do. All right. So Freo's paying $1.71. Sydney $2.14. I think we have tipped exactly the same so far. So I am going to take a stab and say that you'll tip Freo. Would I be correct there? Under 39.5 from a betting point of view. Love it. Love it. Do you know what? Just for a bit of spice in this whole thing, because we're 8 the same at this point, I'm going to take Sydney to come across to WA and win there against the Dockers. So, sorry, Nicko, but we need to sort of have something a little bit different from a tipping point of view, I feel. So I'm going to take one for the team. Alrighty, so that's our tips for the week. From a betting perspective, we've got some interesting ones in there. Only time will tell. It's still that time of the year where it's really hard to tip anyone to sort of be favourites because you never quite know what's going to happen. But, mate, let's get into our bets for the week. We've got the double and up first up. What are you thinking here?
The D's, mate, they should be too good for North. So I'm happy to have them head-to-head. $1.36, and then I'm going to throw the Pies in there as well. I think they're pretty good value, $1.63, which will give us a $2.20 double up, mate.
Perfect. And that's very nice because with our Dublin bets, first week I put it on and we won and it was excellent. The opening round bet, I actually didn't get to put on in time because I was away in the Pilbara and I just sort of was out of reception and all that. So it didn't get up, but we didn't lose money, which is good. So this is really only our third week of betting and we've won both times. So I think the hat trick D's into Pies is a good thing. So we'll have $100 on that, which is very nice.
You beauty, mate. Let's do it.
You beauty. I mean, it was the best week to forget to punt. You hate it when it's the other way around and it's a big winner, so that was good. And we've got our team same game multi as well. You've been working hard on this. I've been up in Karratha, probably been a bit lazy, but you have really scoured through all those odds on Tab Touch. You've put together a same game multi for us. I've let the team down, but at the same time, if it loses, I can blame you, so everybody's a winner.
I was going to say that, mate.
What do you got for us?
All the pressure on me. Well, mate, I love the goal kickers one we put together last week. We were so close. I'm not going to go away from it. Stay with the proven formula. Tracy has a kick too that game. We would have got that one up. So we're going to go again. This time the small forward multi, mate, just in case it's a little bit wet. There might be a bit of moisture around.
Hello.
So we're going to take the mosquito fleet multi, mate, or the Maltese Shih Tzu multi with all the little baby forwards there nipping at the heels of those big forwards, mate. So we've got Dylan Moore anytime, $1.14 for the Hawks. We've got Bobby Hill anytime for Collingwood. He's a prolific goal scorer, $1.17. Jamie Elliott, been in very good form, looks good, kicks in from anywhere, kicked a couple of tough goals from the boundary last week. Bobby Rankin anytime, Stengel anytime, $2.50.
Love that, mate. I'm going to take that, and I'm also going to do a second one with Kako added in there as well from the Bombers.
Lovely, lovely.
Yeah. I can't discount yours, but I just want to add one in there as well. So that'll just add a bit of spice to the weekend. Nicko, we've got to get going. You have a child to pick up from daycare, so we'll call the podcast done and dusted for another week.
Thanks, legend. Good luck on the mines there, mate. Look forward to catching up with you for a beer back in Perth, mate.
Cheers, mate. I can't wait to be in the studio together next week. That's Punt Pals podcast done for another week. Happy punting!
Noise Pilot.